Incentives. Incentives drive behavior. We're talking a lot about fraud in our media cycle right now, and one of the things about fraud is fraud happens because one of the surest variables in determining human behavior over the long course, if you want to be accurate, is to look at incentives. Now, I think you can take this a bit further, and there's a certain incentive that I would argue us Western cultures have abandoned respect for. And that is faith. That is faith. As we've gotten less religious, as our culture has moved a little bit further and further away from religion, we've lost respect for the incentive that is faith. And many of you might have experienced this incentive, but might not be able to classify it as faith. And I think it's this lack of attention to faith, and it's just the reality that it exists and that it does incentivize people, that leads us to a strategical disadvantage in the world we live in today. The reason I say this is to even begin to understand what is happening in the world today. You need to be able to understand how powerful of an incentive faith can be. You need to understand that there are people who are experimenting, for lack of a better word, with the incentive of faith, with the promise that they will be taken care of, a blatant statement, taken care of. They're being told that they are too ignorant to truly know what this even means. And that if they do God's work, they will experience being taken care of. There may be trials, there may be tough times. However, to turn back, to give in to despair, is to fail, is to be a failure. So that's the experiment. If you give up, you're a failure, and if you keep going, you will experience what it means to be taken care of in a way that your intellect could not possibly understand. This is an extremely powerful incentive, and if you cannot understand how this incentive has the power to drive entire cultures into radical action, then you aren't going to be able to understand what is happening in the world today.